Hey there, folks. Welcome back to Old School Investment. Today, we're diving into the basics of investing with our 4-pillar strategy. This video is part of the Get Schooled in Finance course, and you can check out the full playlist here if you stumbled upon this by chance. Now, this is a super basic course for those who have no financial education. So if you already know everything, please refrain from nitpicking in the comments. This course is meant to be general and very basic. In this video, we'll tackle how to create a general investment strategy. No, I'm not going to tell you to buy this, and this because, honestly, that wouldn't make any sense. I don't have a crystal ball, and anyone who claims to is just guessing. Plus, even if I did, the video would be obsolete 2 months after being published. Instead, we're going to see how to divide your wealth. I imagine you're here because you have some money to invest. If you don't, you might as well pause the video because there's nothing for you to do here. Your investable wealth should be divided into 4 different areas. The first is liquidity for daily expenses. A lot of people approach me saying, I have $20,000 to invest, and I say, but $20,000 how? Oh, I have it in my checking account. Well, then you don't actually have $20,000 to invest because you can't invest all of it. Investing every last cent is a terrible move because if you need money for any expense, you'll have to disinvest. People often believe investment tools are like revolving doors, easy in, easy out. Sure, most are, but entering and exiting frequently means paying fees, and those fees can eat you alive. These 4 pillars are designed to prevent you from excessive trading, paying high fees, or missing out on returns. So, the first part is liquidity for your daily expenses. Since I assume you have a monthly income, you'll need to keep enough for your monthly expenses. How much depends on your monthly expenses? $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. Some people need $10,000 to $20,000 for monthly expenses because they manage an entire family. You don't need to keep emergency expenses here, those go elsewhere. Just keep enough for regular expenses and a little extra to avoid being strapped for cash. This should be kept in a checking account. If you're living in the 21st century, use a checking account. If you're truly old school, you might keep it in cash bundles at home, which is a great way to get robbed when you hide it in your kitchen cabinets or behind picture frames. Once you've allocated money to this first pillar, we move to the second pillar, the emergency fund. This fund is for all unpredictable expenses. What are they, and how much should this fund be? This varies dramatically depending on who you are. If you're a typical 20-something student living with your parents, your emergency fund could be almost zero because those 2 people living with you, the ones who bug you all the time, can probably cover any emergencies. If you're the head of a household, where everyone depends on you, your emergency fund needs to be much larger because anything could happen to any family member or yourself. It also depends on your lifestyle. If you need your car for work, you should have enough in your emergency fund to buy a new one if it gets stolen or to cover major repairs. Do you own a home? Your homeowners association might suddenly decide to redo the roof, and you'll need to pay your share within 15 days. You might receive an unexpected tax bill. You might inherit land and find out the apple trees are diseased, and you'll need to pay someone to clear the land. The emergency fund covers these kinds of expenses. In reality, it might not be necessary because most recommended investments are liquid, but liquidating them might incur a loss or fees. I've made, or will make, depending on when you watch this video, a video about how, if you're very wealthy, you can invest your emergency fund. In that case, you'll always find a way to get your money back easily and without loss. But for this basic course, let's assume you need to keep an emergency fund. This fund can range from almost zero to significant amounts, like $50,000, especially if you manage an entire family with multiple cars and properties. Some suggest keeping a certain number of months' worth of expenses. That approach assumes you live off your salary, but not everyone does. Some people also live off their investments, so expenses aren't necessarily proportional to their salary. Take at least an hour to think about your unexpected expenses over the past year, taxes, fines, repairs, etc. Now, the third pillar is for predictable expenses. Once you've set up your checking account and emergency fund, you might think the rest goes into investments. Yes, but it depends on the investment horizon. There's a golden rule that says the most profitable investments, usually stocks, have a 10-year horizon. After 10 years, you have a high probability of positive returns, often significant ones. Less than 10 years, and it becomes more of a gamble. The shorter the horizon, the riskier it gets. If you're not financially savvy, you might think the stock market is for gambling because you hear news like, the Dow Jones is up 0.7% today, or, the S&P 500 dropped 1.2%, losing billions. This is bad education because it teaches you that daily fluctuations matter, but they don't. Stocks perform well over long periods, like 10 years or more. So, what if you can't invest for that long or don't know if you can? Maybe you plan to buy a house in 5 years, which will require money for the down payment or renovations. Or you plan to change your car in 5 years. All these expenses that span between 1 and 10 years should go into this third pillar of predictable expenses. Predictable expenses include things you know will happen eventually, even if you don't know when. Your car will need repairs. Your washing machine, dishwasher, and window blinds will break. All these foreseeable expenses go into the third pillar. The rest goes into the fourth pillar, where we can take more risks. Where to put the first pillar? In a checking account or cash if you want to get robbed. There will be a specific video in this course about checking accounts because many young people think a checking account is an app or a reloadable credit card. It's not, and we'll cover this in a dedicated video. The second pillar, the emergency fund, can be kept in a checking account, but if the amount is substantial, like $50,000, it's better to put it in something that earns interest. Depending on the historical period, it could be different instruments. The classics are high-yield savings accounts or CDs, certificates of deposit, which are like savings accounts but with fixed terms. Don't pick one that locks your money completely, choose one that lets you withdraw early but lose interest. Another option is short-term government bonds like treasury bills. These require a brokerage account, which might be unnecessary if you don't have other investments. Treasury bills have varied yields historically, from 0 to 15%. Right now, they yield around 3% before taxes. There's also the money market fund, which is a type of mutual fund investing in short-term, low-risk securities. We'll cover this in a dedicated video too. The third pillar for predictable expenses is best suited to bonds. Bonds are essentially loans you give to the government or corporations. The US government issues treasury bonds, which are safe and have varied returns. Right now, they yield around 3 to 4%. If you know you'll need $20,000 in 3 years for a car, putting it in bonds can earn you interest without much risk. Finally, the fourth pillar for long-term investments should be in stocks. Only put money here that you won't need for at least 10 years. Stocks generally yield high returns over the long term. Don't buy individual stocks unless you can monitor them constantly. Instead, invest in index funds or ETFs, which spread your risk across many stocks. We'll have dedicated videos on this too. Remember, the goal is to maximize returns while controlling risk. Check your investments annually, not daily. Watching prices daily is pointless and can lead to panic selling. Only invest in stocks if you can handle the volatility and won't need the money for at least 10 years. And that's the basic strategy. Divide your wealth into these 4 pillars based on your needs and investment horizon. Take your time to decide how to allocate your funds and whether the fourth pillar is right for you. See you in the next video.